Given Rory McIlroy's recent ascension to immortality amongst the Georgia pines at Augusta National, I was minded to take an extended look at another Northern Irishman. Anthony Brutus Babington was born some 112 years before Wemac's arrival in the world. The eldest son of Hume Babington, an architect and civil engineer of Creva House, Portrush. The Babington family were direct descendants of Brutus Babington, the Church of Ireland Bishop of Derry from 1610 to 1611, and Captain Richard Babington, an officer in King William's army at the Battle of the Boyne in 1690. Young Anthony was educated at Glenalmond School in Perthshire, Scotland, and Trinity College, Dublin. He was called to the Irish Bar in 1900 and took silk as a King's Counsel in 1917. The Northern Ireland state was formed after the partition of Ireland in 1921. Babington moved northwards in 1922, where he practiced on the North-West Circuit. Despite being an unenthusiastic politician, he was elected to the Northern Ireland Parliament in 1925 as a Unionist MP for the constituency of Belfast South. Sir James Craig, the first Premier of Northern Ireland, appointed him Attorney General later that year, and he remained Member of Parliament and Attorney General until 1937, representing the Cromac constituency from 1929. He was a member of the Northern Ireland Privy Council from 1926 and was knighted in the 1937 Coronation Honours List. The same year he was appointed Lord Justice of Appeal. Babington was a scratch golfer who was first introduced to the game at Lisfannon at the North West Golf Club Links in County Donegal, and later at the County Club in Portrush. While at Trinity College, he became a student member of the Royal Dublin Golf Club, which had close ties with the Dublin University Golf Club through the TCD Provost, Dr. Anthony Trail. Post-graduation, Babington would represent the Dollymount club with distinction in the Irish Amateur Championship. His best result would come in the 1908 Irish Close Championship at Portmarnock, where he finished runner-up to his great friend Glenalmond. Anthony Babington was centrally involved in the reconstruction of the Royal Dublin Club's Dollymount course after the First World War. As a result of this involvement, he struck up a long-lasting friendship with Harry Colt. This relationship facilitated subsequent commissions for Colt and Company at Craigavard for Royal Belfast, the new courses at Portrush, at a course for the newly formed Beaver Park Golf Club in Belfast in 1926, and indeed Larne Golf Club's new course at Cairndhu on the northeast coast, which John Morrison designed in the mid-1950s. Anthony Babington would captain Royal Dublin in 1922, Royal Belfast in 1926, and Royal Portrush from 1932 to 1935. He was awarded honorary life membership at the conclusion of his captaincy duties at Portrush, subsequently becoming president and trustee in the years that followed the Second World War. The current 18th hole on the Duluth course is named Babington's, as is the second hole at Dollymount. Over the course of the next few ODG Shorts episodes, using Sir Anthony's unpublished memoirs and historical recollections, I will introduce you to Anthony Brutus Babington, the golfer and golfing administrator, that was an influencer extraordinaire before that descriptor ever became part of any vernacular. Before we jump off, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Martin Ebert, Tony Muldoon, and Sir Anthony's great-great-grandson, Oliver Wilson, for sharing the resources that will do the heavy lifting of this fascinating story. In the process of shining a light on the early days of golf in Ireland, some notable stories from Dollymount's past, and how a dedicated and single-minded collection of members at Portrush realised a dream to maximise their surroundings for golfing purposes. I trust hearing these recollections will be as informative to you, the listener, as they have been to me in their uncovering and reading. Sir Anthony begins the story with a move south to Dublin for university in 1895 when he was 18 years of age. By 1906, I was looking forward to being married, but I had a fair amount of leisure and played golf regularly at weekends when I was in Dublin. I had joined the Royal Dublin Club when I went to Trinity College in 1895. Some of the happiest days of my life were spent on the Dollymount links as a Trinity member. After I came down from Trinity, I remained a member and played for the club in all its matches until 1924, when we won the All-Ireland Singles and Foursomes competitions promoted by the Golfing Union. That ended my competition golf. For a good many years, the Irish Bar played the English Bar at Easter, alternating between Lytham and Royal Dublin, and these were most enjoyable events. The game has always had a great fascination for me, and I have played whenever I could all through my life. Through it, I have made many friends, and I'm sure that this pursuit is an aid to longevity by keeping the body fit and the mind clear without imposing too great a strain on the anatomy. I went on the committee of the Royal Dublin Club in 1902, and since then have found nearly as much interest and amusement on the administrative side of the game as I did in the game itself. Cecil Barcroft, also a barrister, was made secretary around this time, and for over 20 years we studied various courses and helped several clubs with their construction and reconstruction schemes. When the 1914 war broke out, the Royal Dublin Club was handed over to the military, lock, stock and barrel, on a verbal agreement that they would see us decently treated when the war was over. This promise was kept, and in 1919 we began the reconstruction with the advice and help of Mr. Harry Colt, who was a friend of Barcroft's and became a great friend of ours. This promise was kept, and in 1919 we began the reconstruction with the advice and help of Mr. Harry Colt, who was a friend of Barcroft's and became a great friend of ours. The course had a 64 target range right across it, which had to be removed. I remember that we collected 7 tons of .303 bullets on the second half of the course. Mr. Colt always stayed with us when he was in Ireland, and I was associated with him when he designed and supervised the construction of the Royal Belfast and Royal Portrush courses. I have written of my connection with the latter club from 1923 to the present time, and an appreciation of Mr. Colt elsewhere. My memory of him is still as vivid as his personality was captivating and notable in any company. When Royal Dublin came back into play in 1921, Cecil Barcroft and I persuaded the committee to abolish 4-ball matches. A notice to this effect was posted in the club, which requested members who had played a single in the morning to play a foursome in the afternoon. The club had never won a major tournament, but when we won the Senior Cup and the Barton Shield in 1924, I believe it was as a result of the abolition of 4-balls. Foursomes are much better fun, especially if you have a wager on the match, and would be almost a complete answer to the present congestion on all courses. I will not say what I think of the intelligence of the average golfer, but the Dollymount rule was abandoned some time after 1924, and I cannot see it being adopted again, so we must go on taking 4 to 5 hours to play a game instead of 2 or 3. A very quick history lesson is probably useful at this point. As I mentioned earlier, the partition of the island of Ireland occurred in May 1921, just as the Irish War of Independence was coming to an end. Partition divided the island into the 26-county Irish Free State to the south and the 6-county state of Northern Ireland to the north. For anyone interested in delving a little deeper into the history of Ireland, I would heartily recommend a recent series of podcasts that William Dalrymple and Anita Anand have recently released under the Empire Podcast banner. A link to their excellent series has been included in the show notes of this episode. January 1922 would see Anthony Babington and Royal Dublin thrust into the politics of the day. In a memoir entry entitled "Neutralising the Irish Free State Army with Whiskey," he writes, One day after the Irish Free State Agreement had been signed and the new government was being set up, I was out on the course when someone came running out to say that the Free State military had come to take it over and were in the clubhouse, to which I immediately betook myself. There I found 4 gentlemen, all in uniform, 3 of them with revolvers stuck in their belts, and the spokesman informed me they were taking the course over as a range. One was a colonel, 2 were, I believe, commandants, and the 4th a nondescript. My first question was whether they were teetotalers, and on being reassured, we sat down to discuss their proposal. I had a word with Annie McDowell, who presided at the bar, and told her to bring a round of drinks, whiskey of course, and double ones, and to repeat the dose when I gave her the signal. The commandants were Americans, one called Dervine, the other Collins, and we had a general conversation before we got down to brass tacks. Dervine came from Chicago, and I asked him where he started life, and he said as a small boy he attended a public sports ground in Chicago and was spotted by a trainer as a likely runner. He was then taken up and became a national sprinter. When the war broke out, he joined the Canadian forces. He fought through the war, finally in Russia, and when the war was over, he looked around, saw that his native country was at war, and came over to Ireland as a soldier of fortune to try his luck. He had parked his revolver on the table among the glasses, and was quite frank and willing to talk. And this willingness increased as Annie McDowell did her job. Colin's background did not appear, but he said he had been blowing up lighthouses in Donegal. When we got on to the object of their visit, I told them that the clubhouse was a national asset, that we had no political taint as a club, and that their government would be taking over the range at Ticknock in a few days. After a couple of hours' argument, they agreed that they would go back and advise their superiors that we should be left alone. We went into the secretary's room to draw up a memorandum to this effect. The little Irishman was directed to be the scrivener, and when our secretary Barcroft produced a sheet with the Royal Dublin Golf Club printed on it in red, he objected to the use of the word royal and said this was abolished. I pointed out that it was not abolished and would remain the title of the club until some competent authority changed it. The Americans agreed, and the memorandum was drawn in the name of the Royal Dublin Golf Club. I think I was captain at the time, and Barcroft and I signed it. This was on a Saturday, and I often wondered what the many members sitting in the club thought when they saw us staggering down the outside staircase from the first floor with 2 soldiers, one on each side, with their arms around my neck, and none of us at all steady on our feet. But we got away with it, and the memorandum was honoured, and the club is still the Royal Dublin Golf Club. My bill for liquor was over £5, which was good enough at the 1923 price, and the 6 of us were pretty tight. I left Dublin in 1923 and have been very closely associated with the Royal Belfast and the Royal Portrush clubs since then, in both of which I have found most entertaining occupation for leisure hours. Thanks for tuning in. Join us next time for more tales from the vault, specifically relating to the history and evolution of the county club at Portrush, which would evolve over time to become what we know today as the Royal Portrush Golf Club.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.